Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about, three specific benefits, good things that could come out of connecting Magic the Gathering to Dungeons & Dragons and making Magic the Gathering settings the official settings for Dungeons & Dragons, which in my opinion has already occurred through Guilds of Ravnica. Okay, so basically I've talked at length about all the ramifications of Guilds of Ravnica, the ramifications of Ravnica, some of the bad things that are happening, some of the I'm not even sure they're bad, some of the things that are happening because Magic the Gathering is being connected to Dungeons & Dragons. So Magic the Gathering is now officially connected to Dungeons & Dragons. Guilds of Ravnica is a setting within Dungeons & Dragons, okay? Because 5th edition never, ever declared an official setting, never released a single official tabletop, official setting book for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, Guilds of Ravnica stands as the only hardback book that has new races, new spells, a fully fleshed out, fully embraced setting. Embracing a setting the way that settings have embraced. There's a tradition for introducing a setting into a Dungeons & Dragons edition. You print a hardback, you give that setting, you describe the setting fully, you dedicate an entire book to the setting, you don't fill it up with a bunch of adventures, you give new races, you give new magical items, you give new NPCs, you give new factions, new groups, all of it. This has been done in 1st edition, 2nd edition, 3rd edition, 4th edition. It was never done in 5th edition until Guilds of Ravnica. So in my opinion, Guilds of Ravnica is absolutely, Ravnica is the official setting of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition because it is the only setting that has ever been treated as an actual setting, right? Within the complete, every single edition of the game tradition, right? Okay, all right, so that's my take, right? So let's get all the way there, all right? So because of that, one of the things I think is going to happen is I don't think that the Dungeons & Dragons traditional settings like Forgotten Realms and Dark Sun and Eberron can stand next to the Magic the Gathering settings. And the reason why is the source of magic in Magic the Gathering is so codified and so structured and so strong and so illustrated by thousands of pieces of art and so understood by millions of players that when you look at the structure for magic within Magic the Gathering and you look at the structure for magic within Dungeons & Dragons, Dungeons & Dragons magic source and its magic structure looks like a child's drawing compared to a professional architect's blueprint, right? It is... I never had a problem with Dungeons & Dragons magic, right? And the way it worked before I saw Magic the Gathering, right? And while they were separate, I was like, oh, well, Magic the Gathering clearly has an incredibly much stronger understanding of how the magic works in their world than Dungeons & Dragons does. But that's okay because they're not mixed. But it's not okay now, right? It's not okay now. We have a professional architect's blueprint sitting next to a child's drawing, all right? And they are not going to coexist. So I think that Magic the Gathering settings will sweep aside every Dungeons & Dragons setting. I think Faerun, Dark Sun, Planescape, all of it, it's all dead. You're not going to see Dungeons & Dragons settings anymore. They're done, right? And the reason why is 5th edition proved, 5th edition sold like hotcakes without any official setting, right? And that meant that every setting that had been created before Magic the Gathering was officially attached to Dungeons & Dragons was nonsense that wasn't needed and was just completely superfluous material, right? Because you could clearly sell the game without it. The 5th edition has already proven that. Okay, that's all my concerns about Magic the Gathering being connected to Dungeons & Dragons, or the broad sweep of them. Thank you for your patience and hear me. I'm kind of solidifying this in my head as well. But I want to just kind of define for you now, what are the good things that could come out? Well, there's 3 good things that I know of right now that I think can come out of Magic the Gathering being officially connected to Dungeons & Dragons. And here we go. It is Walker Release Art. Walker Release Art. Walker Release Art. That's my own mnemonic. I'm going to break them out. Planeswalkers. The Planeswalkers in Magic the Gathering are a huge opportunity within Dungeons & Dragons. Within Dungeons & Dragons, we've had a tradition for a long time, okay? Now, I'm okay with breaking tradition when there's a better model, right? And I think the Planeswalker is an absolutely better model for Dungeons & Dragons than our current model. The current model is Dungeon Master controls every NPC in the game, okay? And the player controls one player character, okay? The Planeswalker model within Magic the Gathering, right, is that when you sit down to a Magic the Gathering game, you play a Planeswalker, and you can cast a fighter and a wizard and a cleric and a dragon and a centaur and a direwolf. You can cast all of those creatures, right? So here's the opportunity within Dungeons & Dragons. So within Dungeons & Dragons, what you can do is you can now make the player a Planeswalker. And now players no longer control one player character. They control one player character per level, which means that when you're level 1, you have one player character, okay? When you're level 2 Planeswalker, you have 2 player characters. And when you get to the top of the pile, you're a level 20 Planeswalker, you have 20 characters. And those characters all have the same detail that you have today, right? Now you're like, wait, what? There's going to be a player who controls plenty of player characters? Yes. The answer is yes. There will be a player who will control 20 player characters. Now that player will have played through enough games to be a 20th level Planeswalker, which is the same as a 20th level player, okay? And that's huge. That's really important to understand how important, what that is. Like that's dozens and dozens, if not, 50 to 100 games, right? And that player, and again, this ups the complexity on Dungeons & Dragons significantly for players. But I don't think for an instant this is a problem. I think actually when Gary Gygax created Dungeons & Dragons in 1974, he broke tabletop role-playing. He took war games and he snapped them over his knee, right? And like when he cut it in, he took half of all the junk that was in war games and threw it out, and then the other half he remolded it and reshaped it and changed it, and said you no longer can control 20 soldiers, or 50 soldiers. You're going to tell the story of one person, just one person, right? And that was incredibly innovative, and it was special, and it was needed in 1974. We've had that for 44 years. Now we have an opportunity to take the game to the next level, right? And that is allowing players to become, in some ways, to have much more power the way the Dungeon Master has power. So the Dungeon Master literally can control well over 100 characters by controlling every NPC. So allowing a player to become a Planeswalker and to control up to 20 player characters, that is a huge, absolutely huge opportunity that I think fundamentally changes Dungeons & Dragons for the better, okay? It cannot happen in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, in my opinion. The correct opportunity for it to happen would be when they to bring it forward in Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition. This would be a fundamental, earth-shaking change, right? And what it could do is it could massively increase the interest in Dungeons & Dragons and the player base. It's possible, right? Or it could break the game, right? So now I know, basically it's going to be tough because it really could be challenging, because Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition was a hot mess that nearly broke the game for everyone, and we nearly lost Dungeons & Dragons because of 4th edition. There were literally like 50% of the community just walked away from the game, which shame on every one of you, in my opinion. You don't leave Dungeons & Dragons, man. Like, you do not leave Dungeons & Dragons. All right, so that's a separate topic. Listen, I'll stay on target. Stay on target. Red 5, right? Okay, I'm gonna keep going here. All right, so basically, but this would be a risk. Like, people could hate it and walk away from the game again. But you don't have treble your business. You don't fundamentally change everything if you don't get the huge, awesome changes in your game if you don't take your shots, right? So I think it's worth the risk. I really do. And I think the idea of having Planeswalkers and your level is the number of player characters you control, and you switch them out between scenes, right? Maybe you have a special type of player option that allows you to bring 2 or 3 of your own player characters into the same scenes, and you can set up your own combos. Maybe we'll talk about that, but the reality is, at minimum, you would be able to switch your player characters every single scene, and this would solve a whole bunch of problems and just open up some huge new space in Dungeons and Dragons. It's a huge opportunity, right? And it will make absolute beautiful sense to every Magic the Gathering player that comes over from Dungeons and Dragons. And if you don't do it, people who come over from Magic the Gathering are going to feel incredible. They're going to feel like a genie shoved into a bottle, right? So if you don't do this, it's a problem for Magic the Gathering players. If you do this, it's a huge opportunity for Dungeons and Dragons players, right? So I really think it's important to try this to get it out there. Okay, so that is Planeswalkers. Next is pre-release. All right, Dungeons and Dragons, actually Magic the Gathering has pre-releases, okay? These are insanely successful models for selling a game, right? They are just really super strong models for selling a game, right? And I go to every single pre-release, right? In fact, pre-releases are such a big deal in the Garibay family that my oldest son has he graduated from college with a double major about a year and a half ago. My oldest daughter is in her second year of college. They travel home from colleges, states away, right, to attend pre-release with me, right? And my youngest son, who also plays Magic the Gathering. So there's 4 of us. We go to midnight pre-releases, and I'm not kidding, I drop $100 to $250 every 3 months on Magic the Gathering pre-releases, and I've been doing it for 15 years, and I've been playing in Magic the Gathering since the beginning in 1993, right? So it is a money train, right? Pre-releases are incredibly powerful community builders. They give incredible goodwill toward your product with your customers, and there is absolutely no equivalent in Dungeons & Dragons. So for Magic the Gathering, they know how to release a product at a level that Dungeons & Dragons can't even dream of, right? The release schedule for products, the way Dungeons & Dragons releases a product compared to the way Magic the Gathering releases a product, again, it looks like the efforts of a child compared to the efforts of, the best car salesman you ever met. Like, they're not even close, right? So now, there are absolutely challenges to selling Dungeons & Dragons in the same way that you sell Magic the Gathering. But it doesn't mean that you can't, now that these two games are merged, and you have people who are used to buying product every 3 months at rates of $100 to $250, you darn well better do your best to give some semblance of the pre-release. Do you release your Dungeons & Dragons books with the pre-releases for Magic the Gathering? Giving, and like, for instance, maybe you give your $50 book as a giveaway if you go in and you buy, maybe you pair them together, right? There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can sell that you can sell Dungeons & Dragons books the same way pre-releases sell product for Magic the Gathering. The thing is, here's the thing, I don't know how to do it, right? But I'm not a marketer, right? That's not my job, I'm tech, right? But marketers absolutely can look at this and find new and innovative ways to sell Dungeons & Dragons products on a rhythmic drum bass, the way that sell Dungeons & Dragons the way that Magic the Gathering is sold. And all the knowledge is in-house, right? It just makes so much sense. And I'll tell you right now, it's wonderful. I have no, I spend $100 to $250 every 3 months on Magic the Gathering, and I'm happy to do it because it literally brings my kids home, you know, and a million other things, and we have laughs, and we get hoagies together, and, you know, it builds community within the family. We see friends. My children have friends that I don't know. I have friends that they meet. And the Magic the Gathering community grows through these pre-releases, and we desperately need this in Dungeons & Dragons. We need pre-release momentum, pre-release frequency, pre-release excitement, pre-release goodwill attached to Dungeons & Dragons. All of the expertise to do it, all of the know-how and the resources to do it exists right in Hasbro. It just needs to be rubbed up on Dungeons & Dragons, okay? So, Planeswalkers, pre-release art. Let's talk about art. Okay, this is the awesome, beneficial, cool thing that can come from Magic Gathering to Dungeons & Dragons. All right, now get ready. Okay, I know I'm gonna hear some stuff in the comments on this one, so I'm ready. I'm ready for you. Okay, Dungeons & Dragons has always had good art. Okay. But there ain't nothing when it comes to Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering has punched Dungeons & Dragons in the when it comes to art, right? Again, Dungeons & Dragons, okay, Wizards of the Coast, this is your fault, right? I never really thought Dungeons & Dragons sucked on 15 different levels until you jammed it right up next to Magic the Gathering, right? The art in Dungeons & Dragons is fantastic. It's great. But it sucks compared to Magic the Gathering. And the reason why is the scale of Magic the Gathering art is enormous. It is enormous, right? There are thousands of artists. Everyone who is anyone in sci-fi and fantasy art has scrambled and scrabbled to become a Magic the Gathering artist because it is now a collection of artists that is unprecedented on the planet, okay? There are no less than 40,000 pieces of sci-fi, of fantasy art. So, I keep saying sci-fi. A lot of sci-fi artists came over to do Magic, right? There's no less than 40,000 pieces of art that's been created for Magic. And you know what this means? It means some of the best. There are artists in Magic the Gathering who design stained glass windows for churches. I mean, it's ridiculous. There are world-class artists that span every continent of the earth for Magic. So the rinky-dink art that we saw in 5th edition, which I was wonderfully happy about until it got pushed up against Magic the Gathering absolutely ninja strikes and destroys Dungeons & Dragons art. The art, now that it's going to be attached to Magic the Gathering, is going to get way better. Way, way, way better. And I will say right now, there are some pieces in 5th edition art that don't even belong in some jank fantasy web magazine, right? And with the amount of art quality that comes out of Magic the Gathering and the quality standards that have been set by Magic the Gathering, we're not going to see some of the lackadaisical art pieces that made their way into 5th edition. It just won't happen, right? So one of the themes of this is like Magic the Gathering does everything better than Dungeons & Dragons. The only thing that Dungeons & Dragons does better is it created its own. Well, actually, I guess Magic the Gathering did that too. I was going to say Dungeons & Dragons created its own genre, tabletop role-playing games. Guess what? Magic the Gathering created its own genre too. It created the entire genre of collectible card games, right? It's just crazy, right? And so, but the thing is, here's what Magic the Gathering doesn't have, right? Magic the Gathering doesn't have Gary Gygax. The brilliance that he brought forward and the stories that can be told with Dungeons & Dragons are unparalleled. And there's nothing like it within Magic the Gathering. You can't tell awesome stories with Magic the Gathering, right? And the other thing is Magic the Gathering, at the end of the day, it is win-lose, right? Whereas Dungeons & Dragons, every game you sit down for, it is win-win, right? Sometimes it's lose-lose, but generally it's not win-lose. It really isn't. It was never intended to be that way, and when the game is played well, it is never win-lose. It's always win-win, right? So, Dungeons & Dragons has its place, but as far as marketing, art, production, like Magic Gathering is just on a different level, and frankly, Dungeons & Dragons needs to just take every marketer, push them back, and let Magic Gathering marketers come in and let the Dungeons & Dragons design team design the rules. But on virtually everything else, they really just need to step back and let Magic Gathering take the lead, especially with the pre-release stuff, and with and also with how the actual physical product is created and how it's released. All this is done better by Magic the Gathering. So I'm telling you, the ramifications of Ravnica are absolutely massive. It's incredible how large, like what a massive input, what a massive impact putting Magic Gathering and Dungeons & Dragons together. We haven't even remotely seen how deep this is going to impact the Dungeons & Dragons community. And by the way, you have these two ships that are meeting, right? You have two ships that are meeting. You're bringing together a speedboat and you're bringing together a cruise liner, okay? Dungeons & Dragons is the speedboat, and Magic Gathering is the cruise liner, right? And we over here in Dungeons & Dragons, getting close to Magic the Gathering could flip our little speedboat. But the Magic the Gathering community, they don't even feel our waves. There are, I'm telling you, every single Dungeons & Dragons commentator right now is carefully studying what's going to come out of putting together Guilds of Ravnica with Dungeons & Dragons, and Guilds of Ravnica becoming the official setting of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, in my opinion. But Magic Gathering, they don't care. Like, their commentators, they're like, oh, I think there's a D&D book now that has one of our settings in it. They could not give two rats, right? And the reason why is just Magic Gathering has succeeded at a level that Dungeons & Dragons has not, as far as selling product, right? Their innovation is not a greater innovation, right? The creation of the collectible card game is a much, much, much less important technology, or actually innovation element than tabletop role-playing games, without a doubt. We can tell stories better, and that's something fundamental to the human spirit, right? Whereas Magic the Gathering just can't do that. But as far as product sales and building and promoting and building a community, Magic the Gathering is absolutely crushing Dungeons & Dragons from every single aspect. And so the D&D community better get ready, because there's going to be a lot of ramifications of Ravnica. Ravnica becoming the official Dungeons & Dragons setting for 5th edition, in my opinion, it's absolutely massive. We're going to be unpacking this for years, in my opinion. It's incredible. So thank you very much I know I've been talking about this for a while now. It's really on my mind a lot, because I really think it's going to change the game. I think we're looking at a historical event, and I really appreciate every single one of you with the patience you have to kind of explore these ideas with me. And also I know I haven't been able to get down in the comments much lately. Got a lot going on. Some projects I'm working on that have actually started to get some traction. So, if you are commenting below and I haven't been responding, it's not because I don't want to. It's just I got a million things going on right now. I really appreciate every comment. It's always incredibly helpful. I would love to hear what you think. My apologies if I'm not getting back to everybody now. I am starting to reach a point where there are quite a few comments, and I do have a busy life, but I will definitely try to get down there. Also, once again, I want to say, I talk about this stuff at depth, and I am always amazed that there are people out there who are as interested in these topics as I am, and have patience for my analysis. And I never take any one of you for granted. I truly, truly appreciate every time you listen to these. It's a huge part of my life, and I want to thank you for being within the Dungeons & Dragons community with me, and for hearing my sharp opinions at times, and for your overall patience for my analysis and my commentary. and I love being part of the Dungeons & Dragons community with every single one of you. Thanks once again for watching this and hearing my thoughts on Guilds of Ravnica. Take care.